Good morning, everyone. Can you hear well? You remember, Dan, I always mention Spanish people applies the rule of first row empty and everybody
Yeah,
is sitting on the back of the room. No?
Yeah.
I told you.
You were right.
So, good morning. I'm delighted to be here with Dan Hufton, which is one of the key leaders within AstraZeneca on innovation. Pharmaceutical companies are very well known in the world around their innovation, their research, but they are also very interested on focusing on new technologies, emerging technologies, and also initiatives with entrepreneurs, creating new activities and, and new ways to diversify their business. Dan, whenever I have been looking at the phenomenon of the innovation, one of the facts I'm seeing is that every day more and more the boundaries of the industries are melting down. No? I mean, the technology, the innovation, and the digitalization is really providing an opportunity to create those ecosystems where companies work to each other instead of trying to cope the whole business, and collaboration is a little bit of the name of the game. Can you tell me about AstraZeneca, how you're working on creating those ecosystems with other industries and within your industry?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that's changed in terms of other industries that we can learn from and how they've progressed their digital advancements, whether it be the motor industry, whether it be telecommunications, whether it be banking, etc. But what we try and do now certainly is look at those industries and see how with the governments and with the academia we can create those ecosystems where we can learn from them and apply that technology back into patient care. And just actually, if you go down here, you'll see our stand and the A-Catalyst network, which is a group of innovation hubs in AstraZeneca, where we're connecting all over the world, around how we can deliver some of those innovative solutions in the healthcare space directly to the patients. And from a personal perspective, where we've got involved and my team that look at emerging technology, I think some of the areas that are really advancing is telehealth is obviously booming. It's now almost a $30 billion market. And when you think about what data we can get from our watches, from our phones, the ability, the technology built into this, where it can then read a number of our biometrics, we have to stay ahead, otherwise we're going to fall behind how we can contribute towards helping our patients. So examples such as immersive technology as well. You see just there, BBVA, who are focused on the kind of immersive, game-changing kind of VR experience. We're looking at experimenting with things in clinical trials as to how could that help people going into clinical trials to experience what it would be like virtually before they go into that space. And also just generally in terms of how we can look at sensor technology in terms of the manufacturing space and improve the way in which we can look at defects on our assembly lines. Lots of things where we can take insight from separate industries and bring it into what we do. But the key is really the ecosystem, because we can't do it ourselves. We're a healthcare company focused on patient outcomes. We're not a technology company. And there's enough technology companies now starting to look at healthcare, whether it be Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc. And there's an awful lot of wonderful startups that we can work with to focus on some areas we might not already have thought about.
Yeah. No, I always had a dream thinking of the healthcare industry. That is, in my view, one of the most important challenges, at least in Europe for the next 20 to 30 years, how all this innovation and digitalization will change the way citizens and patients will be related to medicines, treatments, or healthcare. No? And I always say my dream is whether we will see in the future our medicines embarked in a yogurt we can buy in the supermarket, specifically personalized for us, no? Taking into advantage the digital technologies on the personalization space. What is going to be new? What can we expect as citizens, as patients, on the next few years coming from the pharma innovation?
I think you'll probably see a lot more attention to that patient experience. So, if we imagine what's happened just post-pandemic, post-COVID, we're a lot more digitally savvy, we're a lot more interested in that kind of hospital-at-home experience. So how can we create that environment whereby our patients are getting as good as they can as a hospital experience in their homes? Early diagnosis, for example, of their conditions, whether it be chronic kidney disease or CVRM and health and heart disease, all of those things where we can push a little bit more capability to our patients and our healthcare professionals, yeah, to diagnose early, to identify patients that we can then help treat. I think that's where you're going to see a big change. Drug discovery as well, there's amazing things happening in the drug discovery space, leveraging quantum, but also looking at genetics, etc., and everything, and the way we actually do our early drug discovery. So you're going to see it both in the science and in the actual way we engage with our patients. But we have to take the learnings from what we're seeing already, yeah, in terms of other industries, where they're making the digital experience so much simpler for users. I mean, I take example, I look and reflect on my family, for example. My mum now, yeah, would never have used a mobile phone to engage with her healthcare professional, but she's more comfortable doing that. And I think all of us are more comfortable now with that engagement model over digital than they are that physical one-to-one relationship. So we've got to think about how we can embody that in what we do in terms of introducing our medicines with the right technology.
And does it mean then that in the future AstraZeneca will move probably beyond providing just the medicines into servicing the consumers or the patients to create this experience? I mean, is this the type of innovation you are bringing on?
I mean, I don't know where it's going to evolve, but right now I think we realize that just delivering a medicine on itself is not the experience that we want to provide for our patients. We want that end-to-end patient journey where we look after them throughout early diagnosis right through to aftercare. So I think you'll see us evolve to some degree, but we're also going to leverage all our partners, I think, rather than trying to do it ourselves, yeah? Part of that ecosystem approach.
Yeah, again the collaboration. No?
Yeah, it's so important, and startups where they're doing things, you know, you'll see a couple of startups down at our stand where they're looking at early detection for lung cancer and also helping to prevent people not being diagnosed early enough with heart disease. I mean, I'd urge you to go down and see these companies that we're working with, because it's amazing what they're bringing, yeah, in terms of that speed of diagnosis, yeah, to patients, yeah, so that we can then get involved sooner as a pharma company and a healthcare company, which is where our focus is. But maybe if I ask a question back to you, Juan Pedro, because you talked about what we're doing to look at different industries. You've worked, you know, for a long time in Accenture and disrupting and innovating. What industries do you think are going to have the biggest impact on healthcare? Or what industries excite you most about what they've done?
I particularly think that healthcare is one of the industries that requires probably a bigger transformation today, not only because technology is available, it's because the demographics themselves require it. That's what I said is a big challenge for Europe. I mean, we are a continent where people get older and older and older. We live more and more and more, yeah, and we are aspiring to have a much better quality of life, no? In a context where probably we cannot afford to build more hospitals or more residences for elder people, no? So technology and healthcare need to bring an answer to this paradigm, no? This new paradigm, which is we cannot put people in residences or in hospitals. We need to make sure they can have a decent life living at home. And on that, pharmaceuticals and the whole ecosystem of healthcare, I think, is absolutely key. So I think we will see a lot of innovation and disruption in the healthcare space. Expecting as well the movements that are many times announced, it never really happened, at least in Europe, from Google, from Amazon. That will they move doing really disruptive things in the healthcare industry? We don't know. I don't know if you have any feedback on that.
We work with them a lot, and you know, there's a bit of a race at the minute as to, you know, are they going into the healthcare space? They clearly are. They're clearly wanting to get more involved, probably because, like you mentioned, healthcare is a little bit behind the other industries in how it's evolved. So we see it with Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Tencent, Ali Health in Asia. And they're not going to stop because they can see there's amazing opportunities they can bring. But there's also smaller startups, scale-ups, working in partnership with, I think, the government and academia, where we might find those amazing new innovative solutions as well. So it's a balance. I think, you know, we've also got to be conscious there's all this data, and having it all with one particular company, is a risk as well. Yeah. So
And I think it's very interesting whenever we think about the healthcare industry or the pharma industry, we always think about research, a lot of research and innovation about the core of the industry, which is the medicines and so on. But I know that you are making a big effort on focusing on emerging technologies. Not only the technology companies focus on emerging technologies, also industrial companies focus. Which are the emerging technologies you are now testing or getting closer in AstraZeneca?
I mean, there's some of the ones that I think are of most interest, probably right now in terms of really emerging technologies. I think this whole metaverse space is starting to really shape up in terms of where people in the consumer world are starting to go, well, how could I experience that in healthcare? So the concept of virtual worlds, the concept of using a different way for people to consume information in a much more immersive way, I think will become more prominent in the coming years. The way in which you do it, obviously the actual device needs to change a little bit because you can't be walking around with a headset all the time. But I think that will evolve, and that's going at a fairly rapid pace. So I think that's one area that is moving pretty quick. And I think a lot of it is because people, if you think about now, and I saw a report recently where they talked about Generation Z, are most comfortable with their online self and how they're seen online than offline. And I think when we look at the younger generation coming through, they're going to be a lot more comfortable experiencing those immersive, different type of digital environments. So that relationship between the healthcare professional and the patient is going to change with that quite significantly. And obviously, our devices that we've got at the minute, the data that's coming off it, how do we leverage that for early insight is going to be key. I think blockchain is probably a little bit harder to understand how we can make that relevant. But you look at things like the supply chain and transparency of our drugs through the supply chain, that's pretty critical. And blockchain can play a part in that. And also the transactions that go on with all our payers and our pharmacies who help us deliver our medicines out there. There's an awful lot of transactions that go on to and from, and blockchain can help in that space if we start looking at how we can authenticate those transactions.
So what I understand is probably in the future the doctor will visit us in the metaverse.
Well, who knows, I mean, we've got to be open to it. I think we've got to look and we've got to try and explore it. And like you say, it might not happen, but I think we need to explore it so we don't get hit with that problem and not have a way in which we can address it.
No, I mean, it's not a joke. Today we have digitized our tests, our different treatments. I mean, why not checking your patients really in the metaverse and talking with someone where you have all the data around? No? So it's something you can come. By the way, this is a conversation open to you guys, so feel free to ask, intervene, or ask any question you may be interested. Okay. Aquí? Huh? Sorry. You shouting off.
Okay. So you were just talking about relevant technologies and metaverse and everything, but I was wondering about artificial intelligence. So how is AstraZeneca leveraging artificial intelligence for traditional processes?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at it both internally from our processes, but also externally in terms of how it can help with the patient experience. So we've got a couple of partners and startups that we're working with that you can go and see down there that do things such as early detection of potential lung cancer from being able to look at the x-rays, the set of x-rays, and be able to use AI to determine whether that's a potential candidate where they could be supported by our health solution. And that's built up from millions and millions of AI scanning of the x-rays, and then helping to speed up that diagnosis rather than having to wait to go and see a radiologist. And it's the same with cardiology as well, looking at how we can help with that evaluation of potential heart disease using AI. We have our own internal data science and AI division that's growing, particularly looking at the drug discovery process and molecules, etc., and what we can do. But we're also very aware that there's fantastic vendors out there doing amazing things, with the hospitals that we can work with. But I certainly think scanning x-rays, AI in terms of looking at the way in which we're developing and designing our molecules and our internal processes. Computer vision is a perfect example whereby using that to look at the way in which our assembly lines, taking product along, and identifying defects. That's another one where more internal we look at.
And by the way, Dan, I think we all have learned during the pandemic the effort that the pharmaceuticals did on research and managing
Basically,
huge amounts of data to speed up on the vaccine. Is these new technologies like quantum computing in the radar of pharmaceuticals to speed up research and use huge amount of information and data?
It is, and we have, I think what's interesting as well is that we're finding that our data scientists are the ones that are actually getting even more involved in looking at quantum computing. So I have awareness of it, but I'd probably say our actual data scientists are the ones that are wanting to get involved because they can see the potential for us being able to process and kind of identify and analyze any genetic information in terms of billions and billions of data points. So quantum is important. We're working with a few specific companies that specialize in quantum. But again, I think with quantum, Gran Pedro, it comes down to you need to have a big enough problem to warrant actually then processing it via quantum. And that's that dilemma at the minute.
And a lot of money to pay.
That's it, that's it. And there's other things with quantum we need to be conscious of. The sustainability aspect of quantum, which is that to process it, you actually consume a lot of energy. So that balance, of finding the biggest problem to apply quantum computing to, but do it in a sustainable way, is important.
I like something that Dan always says, that the new technologies and innovation is not to solve problems, but to find opportunities. No? So we have a question from Osiri here.
Hola. Gracias, Juan Pedro. Thanks, Dan.
Pégatelo.
You come from the
Pégate el
banking
micrófono.
industry. I come from the telco, and we both know that no matter how big is the need and huge the technology that can support and solve that need, there is something that is a limit, that is regulation. Pharma is highly regulated. How can together the industry and stakeholders like you push, convince, so we can release little by little some of those limits that were defined for the past? Because if we want technology to help people to survive, live in a better way, we need to put together technology with pharmaceutical. But there are things that go beyond the industry. How can we act on this, Juan Pedro?
I think, unfortunately, healthcare and pharma are in the crossroad of two things, no? The over-regulation that covers the whole Europe in all industries, and also that is a very sensitive industry to everyone in the world. So it makes the politicians very, very conservative. Nobody wants to take any risk. From my perspective now, on the collaboration I'm having with, for instance, the government of Madrid, what we are trying to convince them fact by fact. No? We are trying to, for instance, opening the public healthcare to test and pilot new things, new technologies with entrepreneurs and with the startups, step by step. And we probably very soon we will announce, or the government of Madrid will announce an open program for startups to provide technology also in the healthcare, to pilot it, leave the doctors that are the most conservative people together with judges, the most conservative people, to test those things and see what happens. In fact, if you see, in my opinion, Dan, the less advanced digitalization process always happens in healthcare and justice, because it's where the most conservative people is. And the only way to convince them is showing facts, testing things, demonstrating the opportunities and the benefits, and let them, like in a game, move year to year the speed, or at the speed the new ideas and the new things, and trying to implement them. But it's difficult because they are by nature conservative. Probably you feel it every day, no?
It's always a challenge, and it sometimes stops innovation. Ideas can get quelled because we're like, it's too much hassle, But I think, maybe to your point earlier, this aging population we've got, a more digitally savvy population, chronic disease on the increase. If we don't do something together, we're going to have a problem anyway, So I think there's the relationship, the ecosystem, that idea about open innovation and bringing them into it. We have to do something together on behalf of all pharma, not just us, yeah? Because the end result is the patient gets a better solution, less patients going to the hospital, we relieve pressure from our healthcare systems. That's going to help the governments, it's going to help everyone. So I think it's a problem we just need to come together with, and as healthcare go, let's accelerate our effort, yeah, rather than waiting.
And I think, I mean, we are getting close to the end, but I think linked to that and coming back to the idea of collaboration, no? I think one of the challenges also for bringing innovation to, especially to the public healthcare, is that the small companies, entrepreneurs or startups don't have an easy access to the public sector. They don't have the credentials, they don't have the financial history, they don't have the ability with lawyers and experience to fulfill an application to go into the public sector. And I think there is a very important role with the well-established companies like AstraZeneca to embark all these new innovations and technology within larger companies that you guys knock the door, and the door always open. No? If many of the entrepreneurs here knock the door will take very long to be open. No? From AstraZeneca, if we have in the audience entrepreneurs, what would you tell them around how to get close to AstraZeneca or take advantage of what AstraZeneca is doing in innovation?
So I would say we are, I mentioned before, around our more than 20 global innovation hubs that are all about us connecting with startups, partnering with the regional-based healthcare systems and ecosystems to help accelerate some of those startups to deliver their solutions out to the patients. So from our perspective, we're open. Yeah? We want to work, we want to improve and mature the way in which we partner with startups, and events like this is exactly why we're here. You'll go over there and there's more than a dozen AstraZeneca people, not just from Spain, a wonderful Spanish innovation and Spanish marketing team are here, but we've also got our global colleagues here. So this matters to us to be here and be connecting, because we know someone might have that wonderful idea that we need to help foster and nurture. And I think we also realise we've got a role to play, which is to help coach and mentor those startups, because they might not see where their solution is best placed, but we might have that idea, and within our network of AstraZeneca people, we can get all the right people together so that we can help them introduce their solution. So it's important to us, and that's why we're here, and that's why we'll keep working with the South Summit and others.
Okay. So no, just to finish, the only thing I can say, representing to some extent the government of Madrid in my role of chairman of the advisory council, the only thing I can tell is Madrid is really welcoming AstraZeneca. If you want to create a hub or whatever in Madrid, you will have all the support. Madrid have received last year around 3 billion on investments for startups. Healthcare in Madrid is top in the world, I would say, and the investment in healthcare we make here is really big. So if you want to feel part of the ecosystem, you are more than welcome. Same that you guys, if you represent any startup on the healthcare industry or any other industry that Madrid could take advantage of, let us know. Okay. So I think we're done. Thank you.